Do you think flirting is cheating? My wife showed a clear interest in her colleague, and it started to bother me. I am not a tyrant. I have never offended my wife, but when she did not invite me to her company's party, it caused me a lot of questions, and I decided to follow her and witness the split of my marriage. As the youngest of 3 boys in my family, I grew up in the shadow of my older brothers, who took after my dad, while I inherited traits from my mom. Sadly, my father's abusive behavior towards my mother cast a dark cloud over our household. Although I have never witnessed a physical encounter, but the constant swearing and shouting stole the happiness from her face. My brothers, influenced by our father's behavior, made my life miserable. I can't comprehend why my mother chose to stay with my father despite his mistreatment. Since leaving for college, I've minimized contact with my father and brothers to only when absolutely necessary. I am determined to distance myself from those who derive pleasure from hurting others, whether emotionally or physically. While the other males in my family shun the idea of helping others, I actively volunteer wherever I can. It was through volunteering that I found the love of my life. This experience solidified my desire to build a loving family of my own and break the cycle of abuse. I am committed to ensuring that my children grow up in a nurturing environment. In a strange twist of fate, I find myself embodying the role of Santa Claus. However, I prefer to keep this part of my life private. I admit to feeling self-conscious about my appearance and the association with the jolly old fat man persona. Despite my outward reserve, I have a playful side that I rarely reveal. Portraying that enjoyable yet frightening character led me to cross paths with my future wife. During an event where I was merrily playing Santa, she was managing the children as one of Santa's helpers. All I knew was her first name, but her vibrant personality resonated with me. After the event, I endeavored to locate her. Without revealing my identity as Santa, we were formally introduced. Initially hesitant to go on a date, Cassie agreed when her friend suggested a double date, giving me an opportunity. Employing charm and portraying a slightly wealthier persona than reality, our romance began to blossom. Following another double date, we transitioned to single dating. Cassie wasn't in a rush to settle down, but I remained patient. After 6 months, we mutually decided to commit exclusively. A year later, we exchanged vows. Though we haven't started a family yet, as we approach the milestone age of 30, the topic has started to arise more frequently. Known for my serious demeanor and tendency to stick to the straight and narrow, I wasn't exactly a popular choice for party invitations. While Cassie enjoyed herself mingling, I often found solace in observing others from the sidelines. After 4 years of marriage, Cassie started hinting that I needn't accompany her to her work functions. I brushed off her suggestions and continued attending. It was then that I began paying closer attention to her interactions, both when we were together and when we were apart. Approaching the holiday season, I reached out to the Santa supplier, who listed several available gigs. One particularly appealing opportunity was at the Five Seasons Hotel on a Saturday. I have a fondness for upscale venues, as they tend to be generous with tips, so I eagerly accepted the assignment. My coordinator sent over the details and duties, which included mingling with guests, a task that rarely seems fruitful, but I was willing to give it a try. Additionally, there was another gig at a senior living center 3 hours prior to the hotel event, which I also agreed to take on. After locking in those arrangements, I realized that the company sponsoring Santa's appearance at the hotel was none other than Cassie's employer, Malden Enterprises. It struck me as odd that she hadn't mentioned anything about the upcoming party, especially since it was just 2 weeks away. Nonetheless, I had already committed to playing Santa, though I couldn't shake a sense of unease. Our typical Saturday night routine involves dining out, followed by a movie or play. I waited until the last possible moment to broach the subject. It was Thursday night, the week of her party. "Cassie, how about dinner and a movie tomorrow night? I have a project to attend to on Saturday afternoon and evening." "You'll be missing my company's holiday party." That's news to me. "I'm certain I mentioned it to you, probably multiple times. I distinctly recall bringing it up last weekend. You never seemed to listen to me. But honestly, your absence from the party isn't much of a loss. Let's face it, you're not exactly the life of the party. Was Cassie's tone filled with disappointment, as you might expect? Not at all. It was more like she could barely contain her excitement. She made an attempt to appear saddened, but I made a mental note to keep a close eye on her. They typically don't go around introducing Santa to the attendees, and this event was no exception. I had already met nearly all of the management team at previous events. Despite my quiet and shy nature, I have a sharp memory for faces and names. Only a handful of attendees took notice of me, sensing a familiarity in the back of their minds. Eyes have a way of leaving subconscious impressions. Fortunately, no one exposed my identity. The owner, John Malden, was warmly greeting all of his employees and their families. Amidst children bouncing on laps, some frightened, some in tears, and others excitedly opening gifts they were anticipating, I spotted John with Cassie. Though I couldn't hear their conversation, Cassie's body language suggested she had made every effort to persuade me to attend. John must have been accustomed to such requests, as his demeanor appeared far from welcoming. When John looked away from Cassie, I noticed her exchanging flirtatious glances with one of the salesmen. Pat Stillman, who must have been around 10 years older than us and had a wife and a few children, was the one she seemed interested in. That's what I recall from seeing him at the summer BBQ, at least. Maybe Mrs. Stillman was busy elsewhere tonight? I couldn't help but speculate whether Pat was divorced or had found a way to be away from his wife for the evening. Cassie's gestures, raising her eyebrows and smiling at him, unsettled me. Every 40 minutes of work earned me a 10-minute break. After using the restroom, I retreated into the shadows. The hotel had set up a dark mesh screen for Santa to conceal himself behind. It was semi-transparent, allowing some visibility through it. On the dance floor, Cassie and Pat were swaying together to a slow song. Her head gently rested on his shoulder. My stomach churned as I witnessed Cassie guide Pat's hand to her side, a move I recognized from past experiences. Swiftly grabbing my phone, I discreetly snapped several photos. I sent the most incriminating photo to Cassie, testing her loyalty. "Take a look at this photo someone sent me. The next one better show you putting this guy in his place. Isn't that Pat Stillman?" Cassie must have missed my message, or her phone was elsewhere. On a whim, I dialed the hotel and requested to speak to Cassie Foster. There was no guest by that name. "How about Pat Stillman?" I was transferred, but nobody answered. However, Pat had a room booked. So I decided to forward the photo to John Malden. "Do you condone infidelity among your married staff at these events?" An event I wasn't even invited to, mind you. "It's quite peculiar that Pat has a room reserved here, isn't it? Jeff Foster." Returning to the esteemed table, I observed John sneak a glance at his phone before turning his attention to the same couple I had been observing. He then gestured towards the official photographer, initiating a brief exchange. After a nod of acknowledgement from the photographer, he resumed his duties, capturing moments of Cassie and Pat alongside others. As the second slow dance concluded, Cassie and Pat exchanged a swift kiss before parting ways. It wasn't surprising when they eventually found themselves seated next to each other, given the assigned seating indicated by the name cards on each table. How convenient, I thought. It was my cue to take my place on the Santa throne. I've always found it curious how some mothers flirt with Santa. What's the reasoning behind it? Do they believe I have a direct line to the big guy? Not that I mind when a woman makes an effort to capture my attention, especially with a revealing neckline. I simply reciprocate with a smile and a wink. As the worried children spilled their secrets, I noticed Cassie glancing at her phone. Her reaction was amusing. She pushed Pat away and scanned the room, trying to identify who might have taken that photo. Pat attempted to comfort her, but she rebuffed him, speaking sternly. He mimicked Cassie's room scan. Amidst the chaos, I quickly snapped a photo of them, one looking left, the other right. During my next break, I planned to send it to Cassie. Thankfully, my phone was on silent. Cassie hurried to the hallway, alone, phone in hand. As my phone vibrated, I observed Cassie pacing, occasionally holding her phone away from her ear, as if hoping I would answer her call. I chose to let it go to voicemail. When the food lines opened, my 30-minute dinner break began. I took the chance to send Cassie the incriminating photo. That looks more like a "we've been caught" picture. Don't bother coming home. A few moments later, Cassie glanced at her phone, appearing distressed. With rapid typing, she sent her response. "It's not what you think. This is a complete misunderstanding." At the very least, I've interrupted her anticipated evening of happiness. However, I'm skeptical that I've managed to uncover her affair before it even began. If Pat is separated or divorced, I can't help but wonder if Cassie is the cause. It was time to socialize with the guests. I felt more akin to a clown than Santa. As it turned out, people aren't adept at engaging in mature conversations with Santa. Pat nervously scanned the crowd, searching for the informant. Meanwhile, Cassie kept her distance from everyone and then made her way towards the restrooms. Like a cornered squirrel, Pat found himself unsure of which direction to take when Malden approached him. Following a brief exchange, Pat's spirits visibly drooped, and he made his way towards the exit. Coincidentally, it was at this moment that Cassie returned to the party area, wearing a wide smile until Malden captured her attention. Witnessing that smile swiftly vanish was a sight to behold. The sheer expression of terror and panic on Cassie's face warmed my heart. With a tear wiped away, Cassie gathered her belongings and departed from the gathering. This peculiar cycle had come full circle. While assuming the role of Santa, I had developed feelings for Cassie, but now I found myself repulsed by her actions. After spending time with the children after dinner, I took a break and found several voice and text messages from Cassie. I replied, "I heard from someone that you and Pat were sent home. Did you stop by his hotel room again? Maybe you had some fun before and after the party." "Jeff, it's not what you think. I didn't do any of that. I wasn't feeling well, so I left. I went straight home, and that's where I am now. Alone. When will you be home?" "I told you not to come home. Looks like I'll be getting a room for the night. You disgust me." "Jeff, please don't say that. Come home. Let me explain so you understand." "There's nothing to understand. You were wearing an outfit I'd never seen before, and you let him touch you. I bet you two had plans. No wonder you didn't want me there. Where were his wife and children?" "They're getting a divorce." "So you're helping to destroy their house too? What a vile person you are." Cassie phoned, but I couldn't pick up. Santa's break had ended. After one final session, I pack it up. Typically, I use my tips to buy nice gifts for Cassie. If she receives anything from me this year, it won't even be as good as a lump of coal. Now, in my regular attire, I located John Malden. "Hi, John. I'm Jeff Foster," I said as I shook his hand. "Jeff, I sent Cassie home." "No, we don't condone that behavior. She and Pat have HR meetings first thing on Monday." "Not that it matters, but how did you obtain that photo?" "You're correct. It doesn't matter. I'm glad you're addressing the issue. If we never cross paths again, just know that I appreciate you taking a stand. Wishing you a pleasant holiday season." John gave me a hearty pat on the back as I headed out. It must be draining to serve as a father figure to a group of troublemakers. Switching off my phone, I located a budget motel by the highway. I felt drained, more emotionally than physically. After a lengthy steamy shower, the weight of my circumstances sank in. I won't admit to shedding tears as I drifted off to sleep, but I won't necessarily deny it either. Even without setting an alarm, I woke up at my usual time. How does your body manage that? Whether I liked it or not, I knew I had to head home sooner or later. If I had a choice, I'd prefer it to be later. When I powered on my phone, I saw the expected barrage of missed calls and texts from Cassie. Instead of returning her call, I reached out to my Santa hotline to inquire if they needed any last-minute Santas. It turned out that the Santa scheduled for the Children's Hospital had been arrested for DUI on Saturday night. Without hesitation, I agreed to step in. This marked my first experience performing at a hospital. I doubt I'll ever decline another opportunity like it. Despite their illnesses, the kids were incredibly authentic. Their hugs radiated with optimism. Whenever a parent was present, regardless of gender, I often received a heartfelt, bone-crushing embrace. Some of the nurses were excessively friendly, which I found comforting. The woman I loved had shattered my heart, and I craved some form of reassurance. Julie, a nurse of similar age, accompanied me during the lunch break. We walked briskly side by side. "We can go to the nurses' lounge as long as you behave. I'll have no trouble distinguishing between the naughty and the nice." "Oh, really? Which category do I belong to?" "Definitely the nice." Julie's smile was disarmingly charming. "Good answer. What would you like to drink? Did you bring any food?" "I'm standing in for a sick Santa, so I didn't come prepared. Water will do." "The hospital covers your meal. Just let me know what you want, and it'll be here in 10 minutes or less." After Julie placed my lunch order, she pulled up a chair nearby. I had removed my white gloves and red cap. "I can tell by your hands that you're likely around 30 years old. You have a ring tan. Still married to Mrs. Claus?" "Probably not for much longer," I replied, feeling closed off. "Sorry, didn't mean to upset you." "Don't apologize, it's my issue, not yours. No rings or tans for you. Hard to believe someone as attractive as you is single. Such a smooth talker, aren't you?" I focused on my studies and didn't want a relationship to interfere with my career. I've only been out of nursing school for 18 months. Things are settling down now, so I might start looking for dates more actively. "With your smile, you won't stay single for long," I said, prompting another of her lovely smiles. My food arrived, accompanied by an apple for Julie. We continued chatting until my break ended. Julie stayed close, guiding me from room to room. When it was time to leave, Julie waited for me to change and then accompanied me to my car. "I hope we meet again, Santa, unless you want to share your real name." Jeff Foster. "I truly enjoyed spending time with you today, Julie. Your smile is exactly what I needed. You were amazing today, Jeff. Children and animals have a knack for sensing goodness, and these kids really warmed up to you. Take care, sweetheart," she said as she turned and headed back to the hospital. As I settled into the driver's seat, I lingered there for a while. Starting my car, I felt certain about my future. Being with those kids reaffirmed the path I wanted my life to take. When I arrived home, I noticed 2 additional cars parked in front of my house. It dawned on me that I hadn't switched on my phone since heading to the hospital. While waiting for the garage door to open, I caught sight of Cassie pulling back the curtain in the front room. She was accompanied by her mother, and they both shot me a disapproving look. Their welcome was less than warm. "Well, look who's decided to show up," remarked my mother-in-law, her tone tinged with hostility. I chose to ignore her. "I was really worried about you," Cassie said, her concern evident. "Little boy had to go and hide," quipped my brother-in-law. Only my father-in-law approached the situation with some semblance of civility. "Would you care to explain why you disappeared, Jeff?" Looking directly at Cassie, I addressed her. "I assume Cassie gave you the sanitized version. Did you forget to mention to your family that you've started seeing someone new? I didn't get an invitation to her holiday party, but there's a picture everywhere of Cassie smiling broadly and having fun with some guy who's also married." My mother-in-law exclaimed, "Nonsense! I refuse to believe it. Nevertheless, I'm relieved you're all present. It prevents any misinterpretation. I'm filing for divorce from Cassie." Cassie wailed. "Jeff, please, no." Raising my hand, I interjected. "Allow me to explain. I've always dreamt of having children, but I've come to the conclusion that it's too risky to have them with Cassie. Having grown up amidst abuse and disrespect, Cassie's actions last night revealed her true nature. I refuse to become a part-time father." As Cassie attempted to embrace me, I positioned the kitchen table between us and continued. "Just a month ago, on our 5th anniversary to be exact, we were discussing starting a family. Yet now I discover she has a boyfriend. Did you bother to mention to them that the company owner escorted you home from the party due to your inappropriate behavior? Did you, Cassie?" A heavy silence fell over the room. "I doubt it. I'm curious if you'll still have employment by Monday. Pat Stillman, who seems to be going through a divorce, is currently dating her. Then again, maybe he fabricated the divorce story just to manipulate Cassie into sleeping with him. He's not my boyfriend. We've never been intimate. Then what? Did you ask him to touch your body? Cassie hastily exited the room, diverting everyone's attention away from me. I'll be quick. I just need a change of clothes for a few days. Then you can resume your criticism of Jeff. Son, perhaps therapy could help. Sir, in case you missed it, I want a family, but I won't jeopardize their future with someone like Cassie. Therapy won't change that. As I headed towards my bedroom, I could hear heated arguments in hushed tones. The bathroom door was shut. My guess is that's where Cassie hurried off to. 10 minutes later, I was backing out of the garage. On Wednesday, Cassie received divorce papers while at Malden Enterprises. I learned about it from several disgruntled soon-to-be ex-relatives. Apparently, some found this manner of notification inappropriate, though I fail to see why. When Cassie called later that evening, I opted to maintain a civil tone. "Hello," I greeted in my most monotone voice. "Jeff, it's me," she said. "I know. What do you want?" I replied. "You never gave me a chance to explain what you think you saw in that picture," she said. "Go ahead," I said. "It was taken completely out of context. We must have been in the middle of a spin move or something, and that picture leads to a very inaccurate conclusion," she explained. "Really? My mistake then. Just so you know, I didn't share the video that was also sent. Let me play that again to see if your story holds water." The sole image replaying incessantly in my mind was the video. My thoughts weren't coherent that night. Capturing a video is just as effortless as taking a photo. "Jeff, please. It was merely some frivolous enjoyment on the dance floor. That's it. And does fabricating the truth improve matters? It's akin to euthanizing a horse with a broken leg. You don't do that to hasten recovery. You've extinguished our future. I won't embark on the journey of raising children only for you to depart with a paramour, demanding alimony and child support, or relationship is over. Grant me an opportunity and you'll be glad you did. You couldn't remain loyal for 5 years. And now I'm expected to trust you'll manage 20 just because you've had an epiphany? I'm sorry. It's time for me to move on. Call me superficial. Call me a quitter. But the most fitting term is to call me departed. I'll contest the divorce, Jeff. Good for you. Hopefully you'll come to your senses before tying the knot again, were my parting remarks. If Cassie followed through with her threat to contest the divorce, it would only result in unnecessary expenses for everyone involved. While the news of Cassie's demotion didn't offer any assistance, it did bring a smile to my face, knowing that my projected alimony would increase slightly. Driven by curiosity, I phoned Malden Enterprises to inquire about Pat Stillman. Despite my wish to hear he was no longer with the company, I was informed that he was away from the office for a few days. Oh well. With Christmas just a few weeks away, all slots for Santa visits to hospitals were already filled. I volunteered as a backup for any available slots. It seemed like fate was on my side. On a Sunday afternoon before Christmas, I played the role of Santa at a different hospital. My liaison turned out to be a rather surly man. Nonetheless, I thoroughly enjoyed interacting with the children and their families. After the day ended, my resolve to start my own family was stronger than ever. Despite being in the early stages of divorce, I created profiles on multiple dating sites. These platforms were utilized by many for purposes beyond dating, ranging from political discussions to religious conversations and everything in between. Sorting through the influx of messages, I discovered a few individuals interested in engaging in online chats. However, I suddenly hesitated. My conservative instincts caused me to feel apprehensive. Eventually, the dating websites became relegated to a someday folder as I grappled with my uncertainties. Cassie didn't contest the divorce. Nonetheless, it dragged on until spring. I formed some female friendships but was hesitant to venture into the dating scene. The few attempts I made ended in disaster. Recovering from a failed marriage takes time. Oddly enough, I found solace in knowing others like me were also seeking love. Responding to emails and exchanging white lies helped pass the lonely nights. No one at my workplace knew about my divorce until I attended the summer company event alone. Then the gossip started. Why is it always assumed that husbands are the ones who cheat? According to a study I read on cheating demographics, it's nearly equal until age 50. After that, men tend to stray more frequently, often citing ego-boosting reasons. Regardless, I did manage to go on a few dates. In late August, a maintenance worker's ladder fell on me while I was waiting in line at the cafeteria. Why he was on that ladder during peak hours is beyond me. What concerned me was the ugly, bloody gash near my ankle. A colleague drove me to the emergency room at Good Sam. Sitting in my secluded corner behind the curtains, I thought I recognized a voice. As the rustle of the curtains reached my ears, my heart skipped a beat. "Well, look who's here, it's you. Santa took a tumble, huh? Reindeer giving you a hard time, Jeff? Kids found out about your past? Is that why you're here, Julie? Yeah, you got me. They pushed me to leave and take that higher-paying job with better benefits. What's the story behind that cut? Looks like it needs some stitches." The maintenance guy knocked his ladder over, right onto me. "I notice your wedding rings are missing. Divorced?" "Since April. Still no rings, huh? Do you take them off for work? Maybe I should invite you to dinner and you can fill me in." "Maybe you should. When was your last tetanus shot?" "Let me think. How about I have no idea?" "I'll inform the doctor. Where are you taking me?" "To infinity and beyond." Around that moment, a physician entered my vicinity. "What's the situation, Mr. Foster?" "I got jabbed by a ladder, just a bit of bleeding. Nurse Julie's been keeping me engaged to alleviate the pain." "Great work, nurse." "No trouble at all. He can't recall his last DPT shot. Shall we administer a particularly discomforting one so he remembers next time?" "I presume you two are acquainted?" "We crossed paths last Christmas. He was playing Santa then." That clarifies why Nurse Julie, typically quiet and reserved, isn't so now. The hospital likely wouldn't approve of us administering a painful DPT shot, so let's adhere to standard procedure. Go ahead, clean the wound and give him the shot. I'll return shortly with my sewing kit. After the doctor departed, Julie administered the injection with care. While tending to my wound, she prodded me once more. "Where are we headed? And when?" "To a place where I can flaunt you without concern of you straying to my rivals. Perhaps a laundromat?" "How about we skip that?" I winced as pain shot through my cut. "In that case, how about this? Let's meet at Jenny's Pub tomorrow night at 7. They serve excellent pickles." "Are you leaving me to drive myself there?" "Well, I don't have your phone number or address." "Touché. It's a date," I replied. My guard softened by her smile. When the doctor returned, I received a few stitches within 10 minutes. Julie's departing words carried a mischievous grin. "Don't keep me waiting, or your worst competition fears might just come true." I reached Jenny's Pub at 6 p.m. Honestly, I hadn't felt this excited about a date since my breakup. My heart leaped when a guy held the door for Julie. Despite his invitation, she declined and scanned the room. She had dressed to impress, unlike me. I stood and waved at her. Her smile calmed my nervous heart. "Busy place?" I remarked. "Well, I did say I wanted to show you off. Seems like it didn't take long for someone to catch your eye. But I suppose you're used to that. What can I get you to drink?" "White wine. Looks like you've been here a while, judging by the peanut shells." "Yeah, I couldn't afford to be late. Or so I was told." Wow, a guy who listens. The noise level was tolerable, so we had a pleasant conversation over dinner and drinks. When we grew tired of sitting, I suggested, "How about a movie or dancing?" "Not really my thing. I'd rather get to know you better and learn about your past. There's a quiet little coffee shop near my place. I'll text you the address. What's your phone number?" After sharing kisses on the cheek outside the restaurant, I checked the location of the coffee shop on maps. Fortunately, I didn't encounter any issues finding it. Julie got there just before me, indicating she knows the best parking spots. We spent another delightful 2 hours together. Despite being 3 years younger, she desires to have children and a career, although she acknowledges the need to prioritize raising kids in the early years. Julie is as reserved as I am, but once she opens up, she reveals a delightfully quirky sense of humor. I was grateful that Julie didn't probe into the specifics of my past marriage during our initial meeting. Those discussions would come later, about a month into our budding relationship, after a couple of Saturday night dates followed by 2 weeks of Wednesday and Saturday outings. That's when she expressed interest in learning more about my previous marriage. "Jeff, it's evident that you have feelings for me, and I believe you're aware of my feelings for you. But before we deepen our relationship, I need to understand what led to the end of your previous marriage. Julie, I genuinely care about you. However, what I'm about to tell you is my perspective on what happened. Feel free to verify with anyone involved. Here's the story. You're probably one of the few who knows I play Santa Claus. Even my ex-wife wasn't aware, and still isn't. Last December, I accepted a gig at the Five Seasons Hotel, not knowing it was for my ex-wife's company, Maudlin Enterprises. I hadn't been invited. Despite waiting, no invitation came. On the Thursday before the party, I mentioned I had other plans for that Saturday. It was then she informed me about her company party. I opted not to attend. It does raise some red flags. Exactly. So, while portraying Santa, I observed her interacting closely with a salesman who had a room booked at the hotel. During my break, I witnessed them getting too cozy on the dance floor. They were embracing during a slow song, and I saw him touch her inappropriately. I managed to capture a photo discreetly. I wish I had recorded it. When I confronted her with the evidence, things escalated quickly. What a deceitful woman. The day after I met you at the Children's Hospital event, something clicked within me. Being around those children reignited my desire to have kids of my own. Deep down, I realized I couldn't entrust the future of my children to someone like her. So, I made the decision to file for divorce. Just like that? Julie asked, clearly taken aback. Yes, it was a snap decision, he confirmed. No counseling, just a sudden departure? Julie pressed. That's right. Raising children is a commitment spanning over 20 years. She couldn't even last 5, he replied. But you didn't have any evidence of infidelity, Julie pointed out. I may not have had concrete proof of physical cheating, but I witnessed her betrayal. Several times she initiated physical contact while dancing, which clearly excited her. And the intimacy that followed was always intense. I gleaned all I needed to know. She forfeited the chance to be a parent to my children. Sometimes convictions are deeply ingrained beliefs that we must stand up for. I took what I deemed to be the appropriate action. I could discern a blend of emotions on Julie's countenance. Following that, the conversation lost momentum. When we embraced and kissed that evening, I harbored uncertainty about the prospect of another date. Nevertheless, a few days later, I decided not to abandon hope, and when I reached out, Julie's demeanor was entirely unaffected. It had been a considerable wait until we fulfilled our promise of exclusivity. Following dinner and a stroll through the park, Julie guided me back to her apartment. She consistently wore jeans or skirts paired with knee-high boots. Her sweatshirts or button-up blouses revealed no trace of cleavage. When she danced for me, I couldn't help but salivate. Though my performance for Julie wasn't as impressive, I gave it my best shot. Following an extended session of dancing and kissing, we shared an intimacy that had been absent from my life for quite some time. Since that evening, physical closeness in bed has become a fundamental aspect of every date. The holiday season was nearing once again. "Any plans for Saturday?" I asked Julie. "Well, I'm on the 4 p.m. to midnight shift. What do you have in mind? Want to help out as Santa's cute little helper?" "Maybe. I've volunteered to be Santa at your old workplace. I need to be there by 8 a.m. The kids might not realize how good you look in your helper outfit, but I certainly will." Laughing, "You're such a pervert. Let's hope those kids can't read minds, or they'll be really confused." So Julie joined me at the Children's Center. We make a great team. I truly enjoy bringing joy to those kids. As we departed, dressed in civilian attire, Julie whispered to me, "You know, if someone were to inquire, I'd be open to entering a 25-year commitment, or even longer. Aren't you concerned that I might hastily dismiss you?" "No. I spoke with John Malden, and he essentially corroborated your account." I admire the bravery you displayed in standing by your beliefs. And you value loyalty above all? Just as strongly as you do. I made the most of my chance. Facing Julie, I grasped both of her hands and knelt down on one knee. Julie, will you marry me? I asked, miming the opening of a ring box. I would be delighted, sir, she replied, mimicking taking a ring from an imaginary box and placing it on her finger. It seems I guessed the ring size correctly. You did, 5.5 is just right, she said with a mischievous grin. Noted. 5.5. A few days later, I made the same proposal with a real ring. It felt as though we were inhabiting the pages of a holiday competition narrative. Every detail fell into place perfectly. We enjoyed a blissful existence thereafter, blessed with 2 children. Our firstborn was a lovely girl whom we named Julie Jr. She was later joined by another daughter, to whom we gave a traditional name. Not Jeff Jr., of course, just kidding.
That's the end of the story. Write your opinion in the comments about this story. It will be interesting for us to read it. Also, do not forget to like and subscribe to our channel so as not to miss new, equally interesting and exciting stories. Good luck!